The nanny says it was an accident, but the hidden camera reveals who she really is. Samantha Parker felt her heart tighten upon hearing her son's cry coming from the living room. She dropped her briefcase by the entrance and ran, still in high heels. What she saw made her stop in the doorway. The Chinese porcelain vase lay shattered on the floor, that blue vase with golden dragons that had belonged to her mother, the only tangible memory left after she passed away 3 years ago. The scattered shards seemed to scream a loss Samantha wasn't prepared to feel at that moment. "It was an accident, Mrs. Parker. I swear." Rachel's voice came before Samantha could even process the scene. "Tommy was playing near the side table and bumped into it by mistake. It happened so fast I couldn't even catch it." Tommy, just 6 years old, was curled up on the sofa, hugging his knees. His brown eyes were red and swollen. He looked at his mother with an expression Samantha couldn't completely decipher. There was fear there, but not just the natural fear of a child who had broken something valuable. "Mom, I didn't mean to." The boy's voice came out small, almost a whisper. Samantha took a deep breath, trying to control the wave of emotions. It was just an object, she repeated to herself. But it wasn't just an object, it was the last physical connection to her mother. It was the memory of tea afternoons when the elderly lady would tell her stories about that vase brought over by her great-grandparents. It was the symbol of a family lineage that now lay in pieces on the hardwood floor. "It's okay, sweetheart." Samantha knelt beside her son, ignoring the shards. Accidents happen. But while hugging Tommy, Samantha felt the boy's body trembling. It wasn't just the trembling of someone afraid of getting scolded. It was something deeper, more visceral. She raised her eyes and met Rachel's gaze. The nanny was 28 years old, with straight black hair tied in a ponytail, and a face that at that moment displayed a concern that seemed exaggerated for the situation. "I'll clean everything up right away, Mrs. Parker. 1,000 apologies. I know how much this vase meant to you." Samantha nodded slowly, still holding her son. Something wasn't right. She knew Tommy better than anyone. After his father died in a car accident 2 years ago, mother and son had become even closer. Samantha had learned to read every expression, every silence, every changed breath of the boy. And at that moment, while Rachel went to get the broom, Samantha felt a tightness in her chest that had nothing to do with the broken vase. "Tommy, look at Mommy." She held her son's face gently. "Was it really an accident?" The boy hesitated. His eyes darted toward the hallway where Rachel had disappeared and then returned to his mother. He opened his mouth, closed it, and finally just nodded. Samantha didn't press further at that moment. She kissed her son's forehead and stood up, watching Rachel return with a dustpan and broom. The nanny moved efficiently, picking up every piece of the vase with almost reverent care. "You came home early today," Rachel commented without looking up. "I thought you wouldn't be back until after 7. "The meeting was cancelled," Samantha replied, noticing something strange in the tone of the observation. It wasn't a casual question. It was almost an accusation, as if Samantha had invaded her own home without warning. That night, after Rachel had left, Samantha sat on Tommy's bed while the boy tried to sleep. He was hugging his worn-out teddy bear, a gift from his father before he passed away. "Mom, are you going to hire another nanny?" The question took Samantha by surprise. "Why are you asking that?" "Just wondering." "Did Rachel do something that bothered you?" Tommy stayed silent for so long that Samantha thought he had fallen asleep. But then, in a voice almost inaudible, he murmured, "Sometimes she gets angry." Samantha felt her heart race. "Angry how, sweetie?" "I don't know. Just angry." She wanted to press further, to pull the words from her son, but she held back. Tommy was already closing up, and Samantha knew that reaction well. The more she insisted that evening, the less he would speak. "All right, my prince. You can sleep. Mommy's here." But after Tommy finally fell asleep, Samantha stayed awake for hours. Rachel had been working for her for 6 months. She came recommended by a work acquaintance, had excellent references, seemed careful and attentive. Tommy had never complained before, but he had also never seemed so scared. Samantha thought about the scene from that afternoon. She tried to reconstruct every detail. the position of the broken pieces on the floor, Rachel's expression, the trembling in Tommy's body, and the more she thought, the more an uneasy feeling grew in her chest. The next day, Samantha left for work as usual, but her mind was elsewhere. She was a project manager at a consulting firm, a position she had worked hard for after becoming a widow. The pay was good, the hours were long, and the guilt over leaving Tommy with the nanny for so many hours was constant. During her lunch break, Samantha picked up her phone and typed a search that made her feel a little ashamed. How to tell if a nanny mistreats a child. The results made her swallow hard. Behavioral changes, fear of being alone, regression in already acquired skills, nightmares, aggressiveness or excessive withdrawal. Tommy didn't show all of these signs, but some were there. He had woken up crying the previous week. He had started wetting the bed again after months with no accidents. He had become quieter, less talkative. Samantha had always attributed these changes to grief. The loss of his father was still recent, and she herself still woke up in the middle of the night, feeling the weight of his absence. But what if it wasn't just that? The afternoon dragged on in torturous slowness. Samantha could barely concentrate on the presentation she needed to prepare. Her mind kept returning home, to her son, to that frightened look she couldn't forget. At 5 in the afternoon, she made a decision. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Samantha stopped at an electronics store on her way home. The salesperson, a young man with glasses, greeted her with a professional smile. "Good afternoon, can I help you?" "I need a camera," Samantha said, feeling strange verbalizing it. "A small, discreet camera. For home security?" "Something like that." The young man led her to a section with various models. Samantha felt uncomfortable. She was about to spy on her own home, her own nanny, but the image of Tommy trembling wouldn't leave her head. "This one is our best-selling model." The salesperson showed a small camera that fit in the palm of her hand. "It records in high definition, has a motion sensor, a battery that lasts up to 12 hours, and can be installed in any object. Many parents use them in stuffed animals or toys." Samantha picked up the camera, feeling the light weight of the device. It was so small, so discreet. No one would know it was there. "I'll take this one." Back at the apartment, Samantha waited for Rachel to leave. Tommy was in the bath, and she had a few minutes. She went to her son's room and looked around. The toy shelf was full, little cars, building blocks, picture books. Her gaze landed on the teddy bear that Tommy took everywhere. No, not that one. It was too sacred, the last living memory of his father. Samantha picked up a plastic robot that sat on one of the shelves. Tommy liked it, but it wasn't his absolute favorite. With trembling hands, she followed the instructions and installed the tiny camera inside the robot's head, positioning it so the lens faced the center of the room. When finished, she placed the robot back on the shelf at an angle that would capture most of the room. Then she downloaded the app on her phone and tested it. The image appeared clear on the screen. It worked. Samantha took a deep breath. Part of her hoped to find nothing. Part of her hoped that Rachel would be exactly who she claimed to be, a dedicated and caring nanny. But another part, that maternal instinct that had sharpened since Tommy was born, knew something was wrong. That night, Samantha barely slept. She caught herself checking the app repeatedly, but of course there was nothing to see. It was nighttime, Tommy was asleep, and Rachel was at her own home. The real test would come the next day. Samantha went to work with a knot in her stomach. She sat at her office desk and opened the app on her phone, keeping it next to her computer. The image showed Tommy's empty room. The bed was made, the toys organized. At 8:15, Rachel appeared on screen holding Tommy's hand. The boy was still in his pajamas and the nanny helped him choose his clothes for the day. Everything seemed normal. Rachel was kind, patient, carefully fixing the boy's hair. Samantha let out a sigh of relief. Maybe she had overreacted. Maybe it really had just been an accident with the vase, and she was projecting her fears and insecurities onto an innocent situation. The morning passed slowly. Samantha worked, but always with one eye on her phone. Nothing extraordinary happened. Rachel played with Tommy. They read books together, prepared a snack. Everything absolutely normal and appropriate. It was in the afternoon that Samantha saw something different. Tommy was assembling a puzzle on the floor of the room. Rachel entered the frame with an expression Samantha didn't recognize. It wasn't the soft, patient expression from the morning. It was something harsher, more irritated. Samantha turned up the volume on her phone, trying to hear. "How many times do I have to tell you?" Rachel's voice sounded impatient. "You dropped cookie crumbs all over the house." "Sorry." Tommy's voice was small. "Sorry doesn't clean the floor. Look at this mess. Look." Samantha saw Rachel point to something outside the camera's view, her accusing finger extended. Her body posture was intimidating, bent over the boy who was only 6 years old. "I didn't do it on purpose." "You never do anything on purpose, do you? Everything is an accident. But guess who has to clean it up? Me, always me." Samantha felt her throat tighten. That tone, that posture. It wasn't physical abuse, but it was emotional abuse. It was psychological intimidation against a small child. "You're going to stay there in timeout until I finish cleaning. And don't even think about leaving that spot, you hear me?" "But I need to pee." "You should have thought of that before. Stay there." Samantha watched her son shrink into the corner of the room, hugging his knees exactly like he had the day the vase broke. The pieces were starting to fall into place. That hadn't been an isolated accident. That posture, that fear, came from a pattern. With trembling hands, Samantha saved the video. Her first reaction was to call Rachel immediately, go home, confront everything. But something stopped her. It was a bad scene, yes, but was it enough? Rachel could argue she was just being firm, setting boundaries. A skilled lawyer could twist that. Samantha needed more evidence. She needed to understand the extent of what was happening. The following hours were torture. Samantha kept watching, seeing Tommy remain in that corner for almost 30 minutes, until Rachel finally allowed him to go to the bathroom. When the boy returned, the nanny was calmer, almost as if nothing had happened. She offered some juice, turned on the television, and Tommy gradually relaxed. It was this back and forth that confused the child, Samantha realized. Rachel alternated between kindness and severity, unpredictably. Tommy never knew which version he would encounter, and that kept him constantly on edge. When Samantha got home that night, Rachel was cheerful and helpful as always. "Tommy was an angel today, Mrs. Parker. He ate all his lunch, took a good nap. We're all caught up with his schoolwork." Samantha forced a smile, hugged her son, and watched Rachel's every move until she left. Then she sat on the couch with Tommy. "How was your day, sweetie?" "Good." "Was Rachel nice?" "Yes." "Did you get in trouble today?" Tommy froze. His eyes widened slightly. "Why are you asking that?" "Just curious. You can tell me anything, you know, even if you think it will make me mad. Mommy will never be mad at you for telling the truth." The boy stayed silent, then murmured, "I spilled some cookies. Rachel said I need to be more careful." "And did you get in trouble for that?" Tommy looked away. "A little bit." Samantha felt the anger rising, but she controlled herself. She couldn't let Tommy know what she knew. Not yet. She needed more information. She needed to understand everything before acting. "It's okay, sweetie. Mommy understands. But if anything makes you sad or scared, do you promise you'll tell me?" Tommy nodded, but Samantha saw the doubt in his eyes. The child was only 6 years old, but he had already learned that telling wasn't always safe. Rachel had clearly established some kind of dynamic where Tommy felt he couldn't speak up. In the following days, Samantha kept watching the recordings. And the more she saw, the more her blood ran cold. Rachel yelled at Tommy for the smallest things, for dropping a toy, for not finishing his lunch fast enough, for asking too many questions. Her tone was always aggressive, always intimidating. She never hit the boy, but her words were sharp weapons. "You're very spoiled, you know. Your mother spoils you too much and you don't know how to behave. Stop crying. Big boys don't cry over every little thing. If you tell your mother, she'll be very disappointed in you. She works so hard and you're nothing but trouble." That last phrase made Samantha pause the video. Rachel was deliberately making Tommy feel guilty. She was creating a dynamic where the child thought protecting his mother meant hiding what happened. It was pure psychological manipulation. Samantha stayed up all night, reviewing all the recordings she had collected. There were hours of footage now, clear patterns of emotional abuse. But there was still something bothering her, something that didn't quite fit. Why was Rachel doing this? Was it just a matter of a bad temper? Or was there something more? The next morning, Samantha made another decision. She needed to investigate Rachel's past. She needed to know who the woman she had entrusted her son to really was. During her lunch break, Samantha called Jennifer, the co-worker who had recommended Rachel. "Hi, Samantha. How are you?" "Hi, Jen. Look, I wanted to ask you something about Rachel." "Sure. Is there a problem?" "Not exactly. I just wanted to confirm some information. You said she worked for your sister-in-law, right?" "Yes. For about 6 months, if I'm not mistaken." "And was your sister-in-law happy with her work?" There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. "Well, to be honest, it wasn't the best parting. My sister-in-law said Rachel was good at the job, but she had how can I put it? Some communication issues." "What kind of issues?" "Nothing too serious, just that sometimes Rachel was a bit harsh. But you know how it is, my sister-in-law is quite demanding too. I didn't think it would be a problem for you." Samantha felt her stomach churn. "Jen, did your sister-in-law give you any written references for Rachel?" "No, it was all verbal." "Why? Did something happen?" "I don't know yet." "Thanks, Jen." Samantha hung up and stared at the phone. Verbal references, vague information, and a recommendation that came from a source who apparently had problems with the same babysitter. She picked up Rachel's work permit that was filed in her document drawer, looked at the previous records. There were 3 jobs listed before the current one, all in private homes. Samantha wrote down the employers' names. Then she did something she never imagined doing. She looked up the names online and on social media. 2 of the 3 had public profiles. Samantha hesitated, then sent private messages to both, introducing herself and politely asking about their experience with Rachel. The first reply came in less than an hour. "I'd rather not comment on that matter. Good luck." The second reply took until the end of the day, but was more revealing. "Hello, Samantha. Thank you for reaching out. Rachel worked for us for only 2 months. We had to let her go because my 4-year-old son started being afraid to be alone with her. We never witnessed anything wrong, but my son's behavior change was alarming. He started wetting the bed and having nightmares. After she left, within a few weeks, he returned to normal. I can't prove anything, but my mother's instinct tells me something wasn't right. I hope I helped." Samantha read and reread the message. Bedwetting, nightmares, fear. Exactly like Tommy. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a pattern. Rachel had a history, and she, Samantha, hadn't checked properly before hiring. She had trusted Jennifer's recommendation, assumed the references were solid, and put her son at risk. The guilt was devastating. Samantha felt tears burning her eyes. How could she have been so careless? Why hadn't she noticed earlier? But crying wouldn't help Tommy. She needed to act. She needed to protect her son. That night, Samantha waited for Rachel to leave and sat down with Tommy on the couch. "My love, Mommy needs to talk to you about something important." Tommy looked at her with those big, innocent brown eyes. "Did I do something wrong?" "No, my prince. You didn't do anything wrong. Never." Samantha held her son's small hands. "But I need you to be very brave and tell me the truth about something. Did Rachel ever hurt you?" "She doesn't hit me." "I know. But hurting isn't just hitting. Hurting can also be when someone says things that make you sad or make you feel scared. Did Rachel ever make you feel that way?" Tommy's eyes filled with tears. "She yells sometimes. Han says I'm annoying, and that I'm a lot of trouble, and that if I tell you, you'll get really tired of me." Samantha pulled her son into a tight hug, feeling her own tears falling. "Tommy, listen carefully. You are never, ever, ever a problem. Mommy loves you more than anything in this world, And if someone makes you feel scared or sad, you always need to tell me. Always. Do you understand? But Rachel said, "It doesn't matter what Rachel said. She's wrong. You are the most wonderful boy in the world, and Mommy will protect you. Always." Tommy cried in her arms for long minutes. It was a cry of relief, of liberation, as if he could finally let go of a weight he had been carrying for months. When he calmed down, Samantha put him to bed and stayed by his side until he fell asleep. Then she went to her room and started planning her next steps. Technically, she had enough material to fire Rachel immediately. The recordings were clear proof of misconduct. But something kept her from simply dismissing the babysitter and moving on. Samantha needed to understand. She needed to know why Rachel acted that way. And more importantly, she needed to make sure Rachel wouldn't do the same to other children. The next morning, Samantha woke up with an idea. Instead of going straight to work, she made a few calls. She located a private investigator, a man in his early 50s named Raymond, who had an office downtown. "Mrs. Parker, it's a pleasure," Raymond greeted her in a small but tidy room. "How can I help you?" Samantha told him everything. The recordings, Tommy's behaviors, the vague answers from previous employers. Raymond listened carefully, making occasional notes. "You want me to investigate this Rachel's past, is that it?" "Exactly. I want to know who she is, where she was born, where she grew up, family, complete employment history, everything. It will take a few days, maybe a week." "My fees?" "The price doesn't matter," Samantha interrupted. "It's about my son's safety." Raymond nodded understandingly. "I'll start today." Meanwhile, Samantha continued collecting recordings. Each day brought new evidence of Rachel's inappropriate behavior. The nanny seemed to have two complete sides. In front of Samantha, she was always friendly, efficient, caring. But alone with Tommy, she turned into a completely different person. It was in one of these videos that Samantha noticed something new. Rachel was on the phone, clearly thinking Tommy was entertained by cartoons in the living room. But the boy had gone back to the room to get a toy, and the camera captured the conversation. "I can't stand these spoiled kids anymore, I swear." Rachel's voice had a tone of contempt. "This boy is the most unbearable thing. Cries over anything, can't do anything by himself." Samantha paused the video, feeling the anger boil. But then Rachel continued talking, and what she said made Samantha give her full attention to the screen. "But the pay is good, and I need the money. You know how tough it is. And this boss is totally distracted, doesn't even notice what's happening under her nose." There was something in Rachel's tone. It wasn't just irritation or tiredness. There was resentment. There was anger. There was something deeper than simple impatience with a child. Raymond called a week later. "Mrs. Parker, I have information for you." They arranged to meet at his office. Samantha arrived with a racing heart. "What did you find?" Raymond opened a folder and started flipping through documents. Rachel Christine Miller, 28 years old, born in Pittsburgh, single mother of a 9-year-old daughter who lives with her grandmother. And here's where it gets interesting. She has been using a stage name. "What do you mean?" "Her real name is Rachel Christine Miller Thompson. She doesn't use the Thompson surname professionally." Samantha felt a chill down her spine. "Why?" "I'm still investigating, but it seems she wants distance from something related to that name. I looked for employment records, and she started using only Miller about 2 years ago." "Go on." "She's had 5 jobs as a nanny in the last 4 years. All ended abruptly. 3 were dismissals, 2 she asked to leave. None of the employers wanted to give written references." Samantha felt her stomach turn. 5? But her work record only shows 3. Raymond nodded. "Exactly. The other 2 were informal jobs, under-the-table payments. She seems to prefer it that way, probably because it leaves no official trail." "What else?" "Her daughter is living with her maternal grandmother in Pittsburgh. The girl's name is Emma. Apparently Rachel visits her on weekends but doesn't live with her. The grandmother, Mrs. Margaret, is 73 years old and takes care of her granddaughter alone." Samantha absorbed the information. A mother who didn't live with her own daughter. 5 jobs in 4 years. A fake name. A problematic history. "There's one more thing," Raymond hesitated. I managed to locate one of the former employers who agreed to talk off the record. She told me that Rachel had a strange fixation with the family. She was asking too many personal questions, wanted to know details about finances, about the employer's past, as if she was looking for something specific. Looking for what? She couldn't say, but she found it disturbing enough to let Rachel go after a few months. Samantha fell silent, processing. There was something bigger there, something she still didn't understand. "Keep investigating," she finally said. "I want to know everything about her family, about that grandmother, about her daughter's father, about the whole past. It will take a bit longer and cost more. It doesn't matter." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. While Raymond was investigating, Samantha had to make a difficult decision. Confront Rachel now or wait. Each passing day was another day of Tommy being subjected to emotional abuse. But if she acted hastily, she could lose the chance to understand the full picture. It was during one of those sleepless nights that Samantha made a decision. She would keep Rachel for a few more days, but would spend more time at home. She would work remotely whenever possible. She would come home earlier without warning. She needed to observe more closely. The following Thursday, Samantha left work at 4 in the afternoon. She didn't tell Rachel. When she opened the apartment door, she heard voices coming from Tommy's room. And that's why boys who don't obey end up alone. Their mothers leave and never come back. Samantha froze in the hallway. "My mom isn't leaving." Tommy's voice was trembling. "That's what you think. But mothers get tired, you know. They get tired of children who are difficult. One day you'll wake up and she won't be here anymore." "No, my mom loves me." "Loved, but you tired her out." Samantha felt anger explode inside her. She crossed the hallway in 2 strides and forcefully opened the bedroom door. Rachel quickly stood up, her expression instantly changing to one of cheerful surprise. "Mrs. Parker, what a fright! I didn't hear you arrive." "I heard what you just said." Samantha's voice came out low, controlled but trembling with fury. "What? We were just—" "Don't lie to me. Not in front of my son." Tommy was in the corner of the room, hugging his teddy bear, eyes wide. "Mrs. Parker, I think there's been a misunderstanding." There was no misunderstanding. "Rachel, I want you to take your things and leave my house. Now." Rachel's expression changed. The mask of kindness completely fell away, revealing something hard and cold underneath. "I was just teaching the boy how to behave. He needs to learn that he can't have everything he wants. You were terrorizing my son, telling him I would abandon him. How dare you? You're all the same." Rachel spat the words. "Spoil these children, raise little monsters who don't know what discipline is, and then blame those who try to bring order. Get out now." "With pleasure. And you can forget about my payment for the week. You will receive every cent you are owed, but I don't want to see you near my son ever again." Rachel grabbed her purse and walked to the door. On her way out, she turned one last time. "Good luck finding someone who can handle that boy." The door slammed and Samantha finally breathed. Her knees were shaking. She went to Tommy and picked him up, even though he was already too big for that. "It's over, my love. She's never coming back." Tommy clung to his mother's neck and cried. Samantha cried with him. But that night, when Tommy finally slept peacefully for the first time in months, Samantha felt that something was still unresolved. Rachel's anger seemed to go beyond simple bad temper. There was something personal in that hatred. 2 days later, Raymond called again. "Mrs. Parker, I need you to come to my office. I've discovered something important." Samantha left Tommy with her sister and went immediately. Raymond received her with a serious expression. "Sit down. This will take a while." He opened the folder and spread documents across the table. "Remember when I said Rachel changed her last name? Well, the Thompson surname has a specific reason. Her mother, Mrs. Margaret Thompson, worked as a housekeeper for over 30 years. So what? So, 22 years ago, she worked for a family here in New York City, the Parker family." Samantha felt the world stop. "What?" "Mrs. Margaret worked for your parents, Mrs. Parker, for 7 years, from 1998 to 2005. Samantha tried to process the information. 22 years ago, she was only 8 years old. She vaguely remembered a housekeeper named Margaret, a quiet, efficient woman who made delicious pasta. But why did she leave? Raymond turned a few pages. She was fired, without official cause, but from what I could gather through acquaintances from that time, your mother accused her of theft. Theft of what? Jewelry, a diamond necklace specifically. Your mother never filed a report, but fired Mrs. Margaret on the spot and didn't pay her labor rights, simply sent her away. Samantha felt her head spinning. And was the jewelry found? No, but it was also never proven that Mrs. Margaret took it. As far as I discovered, it was just an accusation. Your mother decided it was her, and that was that. So Rachel, Samantha could barely form the words. Rachel came to work for me on purpose. From what I found out, yes. She specifically looked for families with the Parker surname. You were the third. The other two had no connection to your family, so she left quickly. But when she found you, she stayed, Samantha finished, feeling nauseous. She came to get revenge. It seems so. Samantha looked at the documents scattered on the table. Old photos, employment records, Raymond's notes. Everything fit into a horrifyingly clear pattern. Rachel wasn't just a nanny with temper issues. She was a woman carrying a resentment of more than 2 decades. A resentment against the family that, in her view, destroyed her mother's life. What happened to Mrs. Margaret after the dismissal? Raymond sighed. It wasn't easy. With the theft accusation, even without an official lawsuit, she had trouble getting another job. She worked cleaning houses, odd jobs, anything, raised her daughter alone. Rachel was born in 1997, so she was 8 years old when her mother was fired. The same age you were, by the way. Samantha felt tears burning her eyes. Not tears of anger, but of painful understanding. And Rachel grew up hearing about the injustice done to her mother. Exactly, and she decided to take justice into her own hands. Samantha ran her hands over her face. The situation was much more complex than she had imagined. Rachel wasn't simply evil. She was someone who had been shaped by an old pain, by an injustice that may or may not have happened, but that marked an entire family. Raymond, I need one more thing. I want Mrs. Margaret's address. Mrs. Parker, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm not asking for your opinion. I need the address. Raymond hesitated, then wrote it on a paper and handed it to her. Be careful. Samantha returned home in a state of shock. Her mother, who had died 3 years ago from cancer, had taken many secrets to the grave. Samantha had never known about this theft story, this dismissal, but she knew her mother. She knew the woman she had been, and she knew that she was perfectly capable of having made an unfair accusation. Her mother, Mrs. Elizabeth Parker, had been a woman of strong character. She had worked hard to build the family's assets after her husband died young, but she was also a tough, inflexible woman who saw the world in black and white. If she had decided that Margaret was guilty, nothing would have made her change her mind. Samantha spent the following days torn. Part of her just wanted to move on, protect Tommy, forget all of it. But another part knew she couldn't. There was a debt there, an injustice that spanned generations. It was on a Saturday morning that Samantha finally found the courage. She left Tommy with her sister again and drove to Pittsburgh. The address led to a modest housing complex on the outskirts of the city. Samantha parked and stared at the 4-story building with its peeling paint and barred windows. She took a deep breath and got out of the car. Mrs. Margaret lived on the 2nd floor. Samantha climbed the stairs, feeling her heart beat faster and faster. At the door to apartment 24, she hesitated. Then she knocked. A girl of about 9 opened the door. She had big, curious eyes. "Hi, who are you?" "Hi, sweetie. I'd like to speak with Mrs. Margaret. Is she in?" "Grandma, there's a lady here." A voice came from inside the apartment. "Who is it, Emma?" Then Mrs. Margaret appeared. She was a 73-year-old woman with white hair tied in a bun, deep wrinkles around her eyes, but still with an upright posture. When she saw Samantha, she froze. "I know you." Samantha swallowed hard. "Yes, my name is Samantha. Samantha Parker." Mrs. Margaret's expression closed off completely. I have nothing to say to her, Parker. Please, I need to talk to you about my mother and about your daughter. Rachel? What does Rachel have to do with this? May I come in? It's important. Mrs. Margaret hesitated, then took a step back. Emma, go play in your room. But Grandma, go, sweetie. The girl obeyed reluctantly. Samantha entered the small but impeccably clean apartment. The walls had few decorations, but everything was carefully organized. You can sit. Mrs. Margaret pointed to a simple sofa. Samantha sat, and the elderly woman settled into an armchair facing her. So, what does a Parker want with me after all these years? Samantha told her everything, about Rachel having worked for her, about the behavior with Tommy, about the investigation she had done, about the discovery of the connection between the families. Mrs. Margaret listened in silence, her face growing paler and paler. Rachel did that. Her voice was hoarse when Samantha finished. With a child? She did. And I believe it was because she grew up hearing about the injustice done to you. Mrs. Margaret closed her eyes. I never wanted her to carry that weight, never. What really happened, Mrs. Margaret, with the jewelry? The woman opened her eyes and looked directly at Samantha. I didn't steal. Your mother lost the necklace. She took it off before bathing and forgot where she put it. We looked for days, and then in a moment of anger, she accused me, said I was the only one who had access to her room, that it must have been me. It didn't matter how many times I denied it, she had already decided. And the necklace? It turned up 3 months later. It was behind a piece of furniture in the bathroom. It had fallen and no one saw it. But by then, I had already been fired, was already out of work, already had my reputation stained. Your mother never came to apologize to me, never paid me what she owed, nothing. Samantha felt tears roll down her face. I'm sorry. So very sorry. Your apologies don't change the past. I spent years looking for work, and no one would hire me. I had to do cleaning, wash clothes, anything to feed my daughter. And Rachel saw all of it, saw her mother be humiliated, be rejected, suffer. She grew up angry. She grew up with hate, and I tried to soften it, tried to teach forgiveness, but the hate had already taken root. When she had Emma, I thought motherhood would change her, but she left her daughter with me and went to work. And now you tell me it was exactly as a nanny, looking for Parker families. She needs help, Mrs. Margaret, professional help. I know, but she never listens to me. She thinks she's doing justice. Samantha took a deep breath. My mother did a terrible injustice to you, and I can't change that. But I can try to make amends. I have records of how much she should have paid back then. With adjustments and interest over all these years, it's a considerable amount. I want to settle this debt. Mrs. Margaret shook her head. I don't want your money. It's not my money. It's what you're entitled to. It's justice. Justice would have been your mother admitting she was wrong. Justice would have been her giving me references so I could find work. Justice doesn't come 20 years later in the form of a check. You're right, but it's what I can offer now. The two women fell silent. Emma appeared timidly at the bedroom door. Grandma, can I have a cookie? Yes, my dear. Samantha looked at the girl. She was the same age as Tommy. She was also a victim of this whole story, growing up without her mother, just as Rachel grew up seeing her own mother being wronged. Mrs. Margaret, is your granddaughter being well taken care of? I do what I can, but I'm old and money is tight. Rachel sends what she can, but it's not much either. What if there was a way to break this cycle, to make sure Emma doesn't grow up with the same hatred that Rachel carried? How? Let me help. Not out of charity, but as reparation. And maybe, if Rachel sees that her mother and her daughter are being cared for, she can start to heal. Mrs. Margaret was silent for so long that Samantha thought she would refuse. But then the woman sighed. I'm tired. Tired of carrying so much weight. If you really want to help, it's not me you need to talk to, it's my daughter. Rachel won't want to hear me. Probably not. But you need to try. Samantha left the apartment with Rachel's phone number written on a piece of paper. On her way back to New York City, she called. Rachel's voice was cold when she answered, "What do you want?" "To talk. In person." "We have nothing to talk about." "Yes, we do. About your mother, about what happened 20 years ago, and about Emma." There was a long pause. "How do you know about Emma?" "I visited your mother. Rachel, I know why you came to work for me. I know what you're carrying, and I want to talk about it." "To sue me? To have me arrested?" "No, to try to fix something that was broken long before either of us was born." Another pause. "Coffee tomorrow, 10 in the morning, the bakery on the corner near my house. You know where it is." "I'll be there." Samantha hung up with trembling hands. She didn't know what to expect from that meeting, but she knew she had to try. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The next day, Samantha arrived at the bakery 5 minutes before 10. She ordered a coffee and sat at a corner table. At 10 sharp, Rachel appeared. She looked different without her nanny uniform. Younger, more vulnerable. She sat across from Samantha without saying a word. "Do you want anything?" Samantha offered. "I just want you to say what you have to say, quickly." Samantha took a deep breath. "I saw the recordings, all of them. I know exactly what you did to my son." Rachel didn't look away. "And you're going to sue me?" "No, I'm going to offer you something different." "What?" "Treatment. Psychological therapy. Paid for by me, and I want you to accept it." Rachel let out a humorless laugh. "You think I'm crazy? That I need therapy? I think you need help dealing with a pain that wasn't yours to carry. Rachel, what my mother did to yours was terrible. It was unfair, it was cruel, it was wrong. And you grew up seeing it, feeling it. But what you did to Tommy, it was nothing compared to what was done to my mother. It wasn't. But it was against an innocent child. Tommy has nothing to do with what happened 20 years ago, just like you had nothing to do with it back then." Rachel averted her gaze, and Samantha saw her eyes fill with tears. "I didn't mean to. At first it was just supposed to be a temporary job, to understand your life, your family better. But then I saw you with your nice apartment, your career, your things, and I thought about my mom scrubbing floors, about Emma growing up without me, and you took it out on Tommy. I know it was wrong, I know, but I couldn't stop. It was like all the anger I've held onto for years had to come out. That's why you need help, and I want to give you that help, not because I'm good, but because it's the right thing to do. My mom wronged your mom. I'll pay everything that was owed, with interest, but that doesn't fix what it did to you. Only you can fix that with professional help." Rachel fell silent. "What if I refuse?" "Then I'll keep the recordings and move on. I won't sue you, but I also won't give you the chance to keep carrying this burden." "Why are you doing this?" Samantha thought about the question. Why indeed was it to ease her conscience, ease her, to feel better about the injustice her mother had committed? Or was it something deeper? Because if I just report you or ignore you, the cycle continues. You stay angry. Emma grows up seeing her mother suffering and gets angry too. And 20 years from now, maybe she'll do to another child what you did to Tommy. I need to break this cycle, for me, for you, for Emma, for Tommy, for all the families that were and will be affected by this story. Rachel wiped her tears angrily. "I hate that you're right." "So you accept?" "And my daughter, Emma needs things. School, clothes of... Your mom told me. I'll help with that too. And I'll transfer Mrs. Margaret to a better place if she wants. But there's one condition." "What?" "You never work as a nanny again. Never. Find another type of job, anything, but away from children, until you've had enough therapy to deal with your anger." Rachel stared at the coffee cup Samantha had ordered. "And you think this will work? That it will fix everything?" "I don't know, but it's better than doing nothing." Rachel finally nodded slowly. "Okay, I accept, but not for you. For Emma. She deserves to have a better mother." Samantha felt immense relief. "One last thing. I want you to apologize to Tommy." "What?" "Not now. When you're ready, when the therapist thinks it's appropriate. But he deserves an apology." He's a child, and you hurt him. Rachel closed her eyes. I don't know if I can face him. You will, when the time comes. They said goodbye that day with an agreement in place. Samantha would arrange everything. Therapy for Rachel, support for Emma and Mrs. Margaret, payment of the employment debt. Rachel, in turn, committed to undergoing treatment and staying away from work with children. But Samantha knew this was just the beginning. The road would be long and difficult. In the following weeks, Samantha kept her word. She found a psychologist specializing in trauma and intergenerational resentment. Dr. Helen was a woman in her early 50s, with a firm but compassionate approach. It's a complex case, she told Samantha after the first session with Rachel. She carries a lot of pain, a lot of anger. It will take time. How much time? There's no way to know, months, maybe years, but she's willing to try, and that's already a lot. Samantha also arranged for Mrs. Margaret and Emma to move to a better apartment in a safer neighborhood. At first, the elderly lady resisted. I don't want charity. It's not charity, it's reparation. My family owes you this. Your family owes me much more than money can buy. I know, but it's what I can offer. Eventually, Mrs. Margaret accepted, and when Samantha visited the new apartment for the first time, she saw Emma running from room to room, amazed by the space. Grandma! Grandma! There's even a room just for me. Samantha felt a lump in her throat. That girl deserved to have had this all along. Just as Rachel deserved to have grown up without the weight of injustice on her shoulders, just as Mrs. Margaret deserved never to have been wrongfully accused. But she couldn't change the past. She could only try to fix the present and maybe improve the future. At home, Tommy was gradually returning to normal. Samantha had cancelled all work appointments and spent 2 whole weeks at home with him. Little by little, the nightmares decreased. The bedwetting stopped. The smile returned. But she knew he would also need professional support. Dr. Richard, thank you for seeing me. Samantha was in the office of a child psychologist recommended by the school. You're welcome, Samantha. Tommy is in the playroom. I want to talk with you first. Samantha told him everything. Dr. Richard listened carefully, making occasional notes. I understand. Tommy suffered systematic emotional abuse. Fortunately, you noticed relatively early. Children are resilient, but we will need to work with him so this doesn't leave permanent scars. Will he be okay? With proper follow-up and a lot of love and patience, yes, but it will take time. And you also need to forgive yourself. Forgive myself? I know you feel guilty for not noticing sooner, for trusting Rachel, but you couldn't have known. And when you found out, you acted immediately. That's what matters. The sessions with Tommy began the following week. At first, the boy was resistant. He didn't want to talk about Rachel. But Dr. Richard had a playful approach, using toys and drawings to help Tommy process his feelings. Mum, Dr. Richard said it wasn't my fault, Tommy said one day, returning from a session. Samantha knelt in front of her son. It never was, my love. Never. But I spilled cookies and broke the vase. Accidents happen, and even if they weren't accidents, even if you did it on purpose, nothing justifies someone treating you badly, nothing. You always deserve to be treated with kindness and respect. Tommy hugged his mother tightly. I love you, Mum. I love you too. More than anything. 3 months after the day Samantha and Rachel met at the bakery, Dr. Helen called. Samantha, Rachel is making significant progress. She still has a long way to go, but she is beginning to understand where her anger comes from and how to process it in healthier ways. That's great. And she asked for something. She wants to apologize to Tommy. I think she's ready. Samantha felt a tightness in her chest. I don't know if Tommy is ready. I consulted with Dr. Richard. He thinks it could be beneficial as long as it's in a controlled environment and with both psychologists present. Samantha talked to her son that night. Tommy, do you remember Rachel? The boy immediately tensed up. I remember. She wants to talk to you, but only if you want to. You don't have to, if it's too hard. Is she going to yell again? No. She's going to apologize, And her doctor and yours will be there, and Mommy too. Nothing will happen to you. You are safe." Tommy thought for a long moment. "Can I bring my teddy bear?" "You can bring whatever you want." The meeting was scheduled for the following week at Dr. Richard's office. Samantha was as nervous as her son. Rachel was already there when they arrived, sitting in a chair with Dr. Helen beside her. When Rachel saw Tommy enter, hugging his teddy bear, her eyes filled with tears. Dr. Richard conducted the meeting carefully. Everyone sat in a circle, in an environment carefully prepared to be welcoming and not threatening. "Tommy, this is a special conversation," Dr. Richard began. "Rachel has something she wants to tell you, but first, I want you to know that you can stop the conversation at any time if you feel uncomfortable. Okay?" Tommy nodded, squeezing his teddy bear. Rachel took a deep breath. Her hands were trembling. "Tommy, Her voice broke. She cleared her throat and tried again. "Tommy, I want to apologize to you. What I did to you was wrong, very wrong. I treated you badly, said things that hurt you, and that should never have happened." Tommy looked at her with those big eyes, saying nothing. "You didn't do anything wrong, nothing. I was angry about things that had nothing to do with you, and I took it out on you. That was very unfair. You said my mom was going to leave me." Tommy's voice came out small. Rachel closed her eyes and tears rolled down. "I know, and that was the worst of all the things I said, because it wasn't true. Your mother loves you more than anything in the world. She will never leave you. I said that just to hurt you, and that was horrible." "Why?" Tommy asked. "Why did you want to hurt me?" It was a simple question, but it cut right to the heart of the matter. Rachel looked at Dr. Helen, who nodded encouragingly. "Because when I was little like you, something very sad happened to my mother, something unfair, and it made me very angry. But instead of talking about that anger, instead of asking for help to deal with it, I kept it inside. And then, when I was with you, all that anger came out. Not because you deserved it, but because I didn't know how to handle it properly. But I didn't do anything. No, you didn't do anything. And even if you had done something wrong, nothing would justify the way I treated you. Tommy, you are a good, caring, smart child, and I am so sorry I made you think otherwise." The silence that followed was heavy. Samantha held her own hand tightly to not interfere. This was between Rachel and Tommy. It was then that the boy did something nobody expected. He stood up, still hugging his teddy bear, and walked over to Rachel. And then, simply, he hugged her. Rachel completely broke down. She sobbed, hugging the boy back gently, as if he might break. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Samantha was crying too. Dr. Helen and Dr. Richard exchanged emotional glances. When Tommy finally pulled away, he looked at Rachel with a seriousness surprising for a 6-year-old. "Dr. Richard taught me that everyone makes mistakes sometimes, and that when we make a mistake, the important thing is to apologize and try to do better. Are you doing better?" "I'm trying. Every day." "Then it's okay. I forgive you." Those 3 simple words, coming from a child who had every reason not to forgive, were like a balm on wounds that spanned generations. The meeting ended shortly after. Samantha left with Tommy, and they walked to the car in silence. Only when they were inside, with their seatbelts fastened, did Tommy speak. "Mum, why was Rachel so angry?" Samantha thought about how to explain it in a way a child could understand. "You know how sometimes you get mad when something unfair happens?" "Yes." "Well, something very unfair happened to Rachel's mother a long time ago, and Rachel got mad because of it. But she held on to that anger for so long that it started to hurt. And sometimes, when we hold on to bad feelings for a long time, they come out in the wrong places and at the wrong times. Like when I broke Tommy's toy car at school because I was mad about something else." Samantha smiled through her tears. "Exactly like that. But you taught me to talk about the things that make me mad, and I should have learned that too when I was little. Rachel's mother should have too, but sometimes adults take longer to learn these things." Tommy was thoughtful for a moment. "Mum, did Grandma Elizabeth do something bad?" The question took Samantha by surprise. She had never talked to Tommy about her mother's role in this whole story. "Grandma Elizabeth made a mistake, yes, a big mistake. She accused Rachel's mother of something she didn't do, and that caused a lot of problems. Why did she do that? I don't know, honey. Sometimes people do bad things because they're scared or angry, or just because they don't stop to think things through. Grandma was good at many things, but she also made mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, right? Everyone. What's important is to recognize when we're wrong and try to fix it. And are you fixing Grandma's mistake? Samantha looked at her son, impressed by his understanding. I'm trying. I can't undo what's already been done, but I can try to make things better now. Tommy nodded, seeming satisfied with the answer, and Samantha felt a wave of pride. Her son, despite everything he'd been through, still had the capacity for understanding and forgiveness. That was something precious, something she would do everything to protect. The following months were a time of gradual healing. Tommy continued therapy, and slowly his natural joy returned. He started making new friends at school, began sleeping well again, and completely stopped stuttering. Rachel also continued treatment. Dr. Helen reported consistent progress. Rachel had gotten a job in an office, away from children, and was working to rebuild her relationship with her daughter. Samantha visited Mrs. Margaret and Emma regularly. The elderly lady, initially suspicious, gradually opened up. "You're different from your mother," she said one day while they drank tea in the small apartment living room. "How so?" Elizabeth was harsh, looked at me as if I were less than her. "You look people in the eye. With respect." "I'm sorry for what she did to you," Mrs. Margaret waved her hand. "The past doesn't change, but you're doing what you can with the present. That counts." Emma came running in from school, her uniform still impeccable. "Aunt Samantha, look, I got an A on my math test." Samantha hugged the girl. "Congratulations. I'm so proud of you. Grandma said you're the smartest woman she knows. Is it true you manage big projects?" "Yes, it is. And when you grow up, you can do whatever you want too." Emma smiled, and in that smile Samantha saw hope. She saw a future different from what it would have been if the cycle of resentment had continued. It was on one of these days, 6 months after the first meeting with Rachel, that Samantha received an unexpected call. "Hello?" "Samantha, it's Rachel." Samantha felt her heart race. They hadn't spoken directly since the supervised meeting with Tommy. "Hi, Rachel. Is everything okay?" "Yes. I wanted to tell you something. I've been living with Emma and my mom for 3 weeks now." Samantha smiled. "That's wonderful. It's scary, but it's good. She's happy, and I'm trying to be the mother she deserves." "I'm sure you're doing a great job." There was a pause. "Samantha, I wanted to thank you. I know I didn't deserve your help, but you gave me a chance to change, and that changed everything. Yes, you did deserve it. Everyone deserves a chance to heal." "And Tommy, how is he?" "Well, really well, actually. He's becoming himself again. I still think about him every day, about what I did, and about how he forgave me. He's special." "Yes, and I hope one day I can show Emma how to be as kind as he is." When they hung up, Samantha stared at the phone for a long moment. It was working. Slowly, with much pain and effort, but it was working. Healing wasn't linear. There were setbacks. There were difficult days. There were moments when Samantha doubted if she'd done the right thing, if she shouldn't have just reported Rachel and moved on. But then she'd see Tommy laughing without fear. She'd see Emma growing up with her mother present. She'd see Mrs. Margaret finally able to rest after a lifetime of hard work, and she knew it had been worth it. 1 year after that fateful day when she found the broken vase, Samantha organized a meeting in the company's office. But it wasn't an ordinary business meeting. "Thank you all for coming," she began, looking at the curious faces around the table. "I want to present a proposal for a new company project." Samantha handed out folders with documents. "Roots Project. The idea is to create a psychological and financial support program for domestic workers. Many of these women spend years serving families, but don't have access to basic rights, recognition, or support when they need it. This project aims to change that." There were interested murmurs around the table. "Why this specific focus?" asked Richard, the financial director. Samantha took a deep breath. "Because I discovered, in the hardest way possible, the impact that workplace injustices can have, not just on the person directly affected, but on future generations. We can break these cycles by offering proper support." The proposal was approved, and in the following months, the Roots project began to take shape. Partnerships with psychologists, labor lawyers, professional training programs. Samantha invested not only company resources, but also personal ones. Mrs. Margaret was one of the first to get involved, helping to recruit other workers who could benefit from the program. "You're doing something important," the older woman told Samantha. "Not just for me, but for so many other women who went through what I did. It should have been done a long time ago. But it's being done now. That's what matters." On Tommy's 7th birthday, Samantha organized a small party at the apartment. A few school friends, her sister, some cousins. It was a cheerful, noisy afternoon of children playing. The doorbell rang in the middle of the party. Samantha went to answer and was surprised to see Rachel, Mrs. Margaret, and Emma. "Hi," Rachel was clearly nervous. "I hope this isn't inconvenient. We brought a present for Tommy." Samantha opened the door wide. "Of course not. Come in." Tommy stopped playing when he saw Rachel. There was a moment of hesitation, then he smiled. "Hi, Rachel." "Hi, Emma." Emma shyly waved back. Rachel knelt to be at Tommy's eye level. "Happy birthday, I brought you a present." It was a toy robot. Tommy carefully took it. "Thank you. Can I talk to your mum for a minute?" "Sure." Rachel and Samantha stepped away to the balcony while the children resumed playing. "Thank you for letting us in," Rachel said. "I know I don't have the right—" "Rachel, stop. You do have the right. You're doing the work. You're changing. That deserves recognition. I still have difficult days, days when the anger comes back." "And what do you do on those days?" "I call Dr. Helen, or I talk to my mum, or I go for a walk. I do anything except let the anger control me." Samantha nodded, proud. "Keep it up." "Samantha, there's something I'd like to do. I don't know if you'll accept, but I wanted to help with the Roots project. Somehow. Maybe by sharing my story, helping other women not to carry resentments like I did." Samantha felt her eyes sting. "That would be amazing." They went back inside, where the party continued cheerfully. Samantha watched Tommy and Emma playing together, two children who represented different hopes. Tommy, healed from trauma. Emma, growing up free from the burden her mother had carried. Mrs. Margaret approached Samantha. "Your mother made a terrible mistake with me," the woman said quietly. "But you're doing more than fixing that mistake. You're changing the future." "I'm trying." "No, you're succeeding." That night, after everyone had left and Tommy was sleeping peacefully with his new robot beside him, Samantha sat on the sofa and looked around the apartment. It was the same place where everything had begun, where she had found the broken vase, where everything had changed. But now it was different. The weight of guilt had given way to something lighter. It wasn't perfect. There were still difficult days. There was still work to be done. But there was hope. There was healing. There was a future. Samantha picked up her phone and opened the drawer where she kept the pieces of the porcelain vase. She had saved them all, not really knowing why. She looked at the colorful fragments, the memory of her mother preserved in shards. Then she had an idea. The next day, Samantha took the pieces to a craftsman specialized in kintsugi, the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold. He examined the fragments carefully. "It will take a few weeks, but I can rebuild it. It won't be like before, but it will be beautiful in its own way." "Perfect, that's exactly what I want." Weeks later, when Samantha went to pick up the vase, it was transformed. The cracks had been filled with gold, creating bright lines that intertwined the pieces. It didn't try to hide that it had been broken. On the contrary, it celebrated its history. Samantha placed the vase on the living room shelf. Tommy watched curiously. "It looks different." "It does. But it's still beautiful, isn't it?" "I think it's even more beautiful. The golden lines are cool." Samantha hugged her son. "You know, my love, this vase is a bit like people. Sometimes we break, sometimes we get hurt. but we can be fixed. And sometimes, after we're fixed, we become even stronger and more beautiful than we were before. Tommy looked at the vase, then at his mother. Like Rachel? Like Rachel. And like you. And like me. We all broke a little in this story, but we're fixing ourselves together. 2 years after that fateful day of the broken vase, Samantha was at the official launch of the Roots project. The event took place in a rented space in downtown New York City, with simple but elegant decoration. Domestic workers, business people, journalists, and local authorities were present. Samantha stepped onto the stage to speak. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. The Roots project was born from a personal story. A story of mistakes, of pain, but also of healing and redemption. She told in general terms what had happened, without mentioning specific names, but sharing the lessons learned. The audience listened in respectful silence. I learned that injustices don't just affect one generation. They spread, create deep roots, affect entire families for decades. But I also learned that it's never too late to try to fix things. That forgiveness is possible, that healing is possible, and that when we offer people the right tools and proper support, incredible changes can happen. Applause echoed through the space. Samantha stepped down from the stage and was hugged by several people. Among them, Rachel. You were amazing, Rachel whispered. I wouldn't have done this without you. Without our story. Our horrible story? Samantha smiled. Our story of overcoming. Mrs. Margaret was also there, sitting in a chair in the front row. Samantha knelt beside her. What did you think? I think your mother would be very proud of you now. The statement took Samantha by surprise. She had always assumed her mother would be furious with what she had done, helping the woman she had accused of theft. Even after everything? Even after everything, because you're being better than she was. And isn't that what all parents want? For their children to be better? Samantha felt tears rolling down. Thank you, Mrs. Margaret, for everything. The party continued late into the night. Tommy and Emma were playing in a corner, supervised by Samantha's sister. Seeing the two children laughing together was living proof that the cycle had been broken. Later, back at home, Samantha checked the messages on her phone. There was one from Raymond, the investigator. I saw the report about the event in the newspaper. Congratulations on the project. You did the right thing. And there was another one from Jennifer, the colleague who had originally recommended Rachel. Samantha, I can't stop thinking that if I had checked more carefully before recommending Rachel, none of this would have happened. I'm sorry. Samantha replied, Jen, everything happened as it was meant to. It wasn't easy, it was painful, but it led to important changes. Don't carry guilt. Carry lessons learned. Lying in bed that night, Samantha reflected on the last 2 years, how much she had changed, how much she had grown, how much she had learned. She learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing the inexcusable. It means choosing not to let the past control the present. She learned that justice doesn't always come through courts and punishments. Sometimes it comes through recognition, reparation, and commitment to change. She learned that people aren't simply good or bad. They're complex, shaped by experiences, carrying pains that explain, but don't justify, their behaviors. And she learned that protecting a child doesn't just mean protecting them from external dangers. It also means teaching them about empathy, forgiveness, human complexity. Tommy hadn't forgotten what Rachel had done. He would probably carry those memories for life, but he wouldn't carry only trauma. He would also carry the memory of forgiveness, of seeing adults taking responsibility, of witnessing healing, and that, Samantha hoped, would make him a more compassionate, more understanding adult, more capable of breaking negative cycles when he encountered them. On the 3rd anniversary of the Roots Project, the organization had already helped more than 200 domestic workers. It had offered therapy, legal counseling, training programs, and advocacy for better working conditions. Rachel had become one of the most active volunteers. She shared her story in workshops, helped other women process resentments, used her own healed wounds to help heal others. It's strange, she told Samantha at one of the events. I spent so much time angry, planning revenge, carrying resentment. And now, helping other people not take the same path. I feel like I've finally found purpose. You always had purpose. It was just buried under pain. And you helped me dig it up. We helped each other. Emma, now 12 years old, was becoming a confident and intelligent young woman. She got excellent grades, had many friends, and dreamed of becoming a psychologist when she grew up. "Because I want to help people like my mum," she explained to Samantha, "people who are hurt but can get better." Tommy, 9 years old, was a cheerful and empathetic boy. He had continued in preventive therapy for a few years and now was completely fine. Dr. Richard had given him medical clearance, confirming there were no signs of lasting trauma. "He processed everything remarkably healthily," the psychologist told Samantha. "Much of that is due to how you handled the situation. You turned a potential trauma into a life lesson." The two children, Tommy and Emma, had become close friends. They spent time together regularly, and their friendship was a constant reminder that the future doesn't have to repeat the mistakes of the past. One Sunday afternoon, Samantha was in the kitchen preparing lunch while Tommy did his homework at the table. "Mum, the teacher asked us to write about a brave person we know." "And who are you going to write about?" Tommy thought for a moment. "About you, and about Rachel." Samantha stopped chopping vegetables. "Why Rachel?" "Because she did bad things, but had the courage to admit it and change. The teacher said courage isn't about not being afraid or not making mistakes. It's about being afraid or making mistakes and still doing the right thing." Samantha felt her eyes sting. Her son, who was only 9 years old, had understood something that many adults take a lifetime to learn. "I think it's an excellent choice. And you're brave because you helped Rachel even after what she did." The teacher said that's called compassion. Samantha knelt beside her son and hugged him. "You're a very special boy, you know that." "Because you taught me, and because what happened taught me." That night, after putting Tommy to bed, Samantha went to the living room and stared at the repaired porcelain vase. The golden lines shimmered softly in the lamplight. She thought of her mother, of Mrs. Margaret, of Rachel, of Emma, of Tommy. She thought of all the lives intertwined by a single injustice committed decades ago, and she thought about how it had been necessary to break completely to be able to rebuild stronger and more beautiful. Her phone vibrated. It was a message from Rachel. "Emma just got accepted into a scholarship program for exceptional students. I'm crying with happiness. None of this would be possible without you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart." Samantha replied, "Emma got there on her own merit. You're a wonderful mother, Rachel. You're doing an incredible job. I'm trying, every day, and Emma reminds me why it's worth it." Samantha smiled and put away her phone. She looked around the apartment that had been the stage for so much suffering, but also for so much healing. The walls had witnessed tears, but also laughter. They had seen wounds being opened, but also being closed. She thought about the future, about the Roots project expanding to other cities, about Tommy growing up to be a compassionate and fair man, about Emma achieving her dreams, about Rachel continuing her healing journey, about Mrs. Margaret finally being able to rest, knowing her struggles hadn't been in vain. And she thought about how many other families in Brazil and in the world carried resentments between generations. How many Rachels were out there, hurting others because they had been hurt? How many cycles needed to be broken? The work was immense but not impossible. One by one, story by story, family by family, it was possible to heal. It was possible to forgive. It was possible to rebuild. Like the porcelain vase with its golden lines, it was possible to transform breakage into beauty, pain into learning, injustice into an opportunity for change. Samantha went to Tommy's room and stood in the doorway, watching her son sleep peacefully, her chest filled with love and gratitude. Gratitude for the son she had, for his ability to forgive, for the strength he had shown through everything, and gratitude also for the difficult journey they had been through. Because without it, Samantha would never have grown the way she had. She would never have found her purpose. She would never have made a difference in so many people's lives. Sometimes, she thought, the worst situations lead to the best outcomes. Not because suffering is necessary or good, but because it forces us to make choices. And the right choices, even when difficult, can transform everything. End of story. So, dear listener, what did you think of this journey of overcoming and forgiveness? Do you think you could have done what Samantha did, turning pain into healing? Leave your opinion in the comments with sincere words. If this story touched your heart in any way, don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories that bring important reflections about family, forgiveness, and second chances. Your company is very special to us. Thank you so much for following along this far.